What's up, everybody? I'm Greg Mack, and I'm back. Welcome to another episode of Your Plan is in High Demand. If you're out there listening, I want to take you on a journey that features the Hart family, and it's the Hart Family Abduction Tragedy. However, before we go there, I want to give you some very important information for you and your families to really sit and think about, and maybe even talk about. With that said, I'm sure by now you've seen, heard, and read about abductions around the country and in many other nations. In fact, here in the U.S., it's actually stated that the number of abductions vary significantly by definition, but family abductions of children are in the thousands, hundreds of thousands annually, with strange abductions being more rare. Facts further tell you that a comprehensive breakdown, like let's say in 2018, it identified just over 100 cases of stereotypical stranger abductions of children per year. Even though some of those estimates for stranger abductions of children, they range between 3,000 to 20,000 kids being snatched annually. This from my point of view means that we as parents, we must absolutely become more vigilant in protecting our families from predators, especially our children. In many cases, we must unfortunately protect them from our very own family members, neighbors, and friends, and that is really something we should never have to do, but it happens more often than you can ever imagine. Now, while I know you understand that children are the most targeted entity for most predators, at any given time, anyone can be taken for ransom, trafficking, or even payback or resentment. And that's become a big thing here in the United States. It's a significant threat here in the U.S. and definitely around the world. So let me tell you a story about the Hart family abduction tragedy. But first, you may ask, who are the Harts? Well, the Hart family is a family of four. You have 41-year-old dad, 40-year-old mom, 21-year-old daughter, and 17-year-old son. They live in a nice mid-level community in the Washington State area. Dad's a senior branch manager at a bank. Mom is a manager at the local pharmacy. Her daughter is a college junior, but she lives at home and drives back and forth from home to school. And the son is a high school junior. Now, the Hart family, they're known as a very good family. They live a very modest life. They hold a good reputation within the community. Dad and mom, once they're done working, they typically get home around, 5 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Whereas the son, he carpools with the neighbors down the street, and then he usually gets home around 5:30 p.m. or so as well. The daughter, she has her own car, and she generally gets home by 6:30. The family likes to have dinner by 7, so she does everything in her power to be home by 7 p.m. If she can't make it, then obviously she lets them know. Now, on a dusk and rainy Thursday evening, just after 6:30 p.m., Dad, mom, and son, they're already home, and they had dinner right at 7 p.m. as usual. However, they knew that the daughter, she had notified mom earlier that she had a big class project and would be there late with her assigned team, and probably wouldn't get home to around somewhere about 8 p.m., 8:15 or so. But she would message mom when she was headed home, just to let them know she was home and getting home safe. After they completed the project, she did what she normally does when she stays late. She sends a message to mom and dad just to make sure they know that she's on her way home. Now she pulls into the driveway. It's approximately 8:20 p.m., 8:25, somewhere in that area. And she usually parks in her normal spot, which is to the far right side of the yard. Dad, at this point, he was in the shower after getting in a late workout. Mom's in the bedroom. She's on the phone speaking with a coworker. That's her typical thing. She has a good friend that she likes to speak with during the evening. And the son, as usual, he's playing Minecraft video game with his friends. He's got his headset on. Now, no one is aware the daughter has not come inside the home yet because they're busy doing other things. And they just assume, okay, we got the message, so we know she'll be home soon, somewhere around 8:30 at the latest. Now, Dad ends up going into the living room around 8:50 p.m., but he doesn't see his daughter. Now, he assumes that she's already in the room because he sees a car parked in the usual spot. So he carries on with just doing his normal thing. Now, Mom finally gets off the phone and she makes her way downstairs into the living room. So she asks her husband, "Hey, where's our daughter?" And Dad said, "Oh, I believe she's already in her room." So Mom sees the car as well and says, "Oh, okay, I guess she'll come into the kitchen soon to grab something to eat if she hasn't already done so and taken it upstairs." Now, it is about 9:10 p.m. and the daughter has made no appearance to at least say hi or come downstairs and check in. So Mom's worried, says loudly, "Hey, where you at? Where you at?" She's calling out to her daughter a couple of different times. There's no answer. So she assumes, oh, well, maybe she's in the shower, so we'll give her a little bit of time. After about 15 minutes, Mom goes and knocks on the door, and then she enters her daughter's bedroom, and she's not there. Now we have a little bit of a panic as they're looking around the home, to include the son's room. Dad grabs an umbrella and his shoes, and he goes out to his daughter's car. For some reason, that's not the norm, the car is unlocked. The daughter's keys, the phone, her school bag are still inside the vehicle. There's also some blood on the keys, the steering wheel, and the driver's side seat. So Dad knows that something is wrong, and he believes that his daughter is missing. So he informs Mom and son what he observed, and they immediately call the police. Now, at this point, the police arrive on the scene pretty quickly. They get the news about the daughter from Dad, and they quickly conduct a rapid search of the property. The police do what they typically do. They interview the family. They secure the scene to preserve evidence, and then they put out a BOLO alert to all units. They give the description and the last known whereabouts based on photos from the family and what Mom and Dad made sure they understood as far as the school situation. Now, after a period of time, police process for forensic evidence. They set up a command post right there at the home. They canvass the neighborhood using the K9s. They even get out an area unit. They check databases for sex offenders and criminal histories for persons of interest who might live in or around that area. Now, at this point, they know that something's wrong because of the blood and the evidence out in the car that the daughter may have been abducted, because they can't find her anywhere in that general area. So the police and the family, they're just pulling out all stops to gather the information and locate the daughter as quickly as possible. That saying, the first 48, or in this case, the first few hours. Because of the blood that Dad found inside the car, he believes that his daughter's badly injured. And he's screaming at the top of his lungs, "Hey, you guys need to move faster." He's getting really frantic and upset with the police as though they're not doing their jobs and not giving them information. But Mom snaps at Dad and tells him to back off and let the police do their jobs. She understands it's difficult. Dad and daughter are really close, just like the entire family is. But at the same time, the police can't just come there and wave a magic wand and then the child or whoever is missing just reappears. The home and the neighborhood see police officers and K9s everywhere. So in the area units, that area is blanketed. So now you get the neighbors trying to figure out what's going on. The phones are ringing off the hook, the cell phones, the house phone. Neighbors are trying to come over and see what's happening, get turned back by the police. And, to make matters even worse, the rain has started to come down quite a bit harder. And then there's also some lightning in the area. But nonetheless, police, as they always seem to do, or at least the best ability, they diligently keep working to locate the daughter. Dad, Mom, and son, they're sitting as patiently as possible, although they're on pins and needles and just really upset about the whole thing. And they're just waiting to hear the phone ring or hoping that an abductor or someone calls that knows where daughter might be. At this time, it is now 11:50 p.m. Everything seems like it's become a complete standstill. The police are still working the case to try to figure out where his daughter might be. Dad, mom, and son doing everything in their power to keep their sanity. And then suddenly, a call from a strange voice rang on mom's mobile phone. She answers the call, but she's told immediately, hey, you need to act normal and not alert the police to anything that I say to you. However, common sense will tell you that the police have already tapped into the phones just to make sure in case a caller makes a call and they can try to figure out who it is. They do believe it's a call from the abductor or the person of interest. The caller then tells mom, hey, I have your daughter, and yes, she's alive. And I'm just telling you, she owes me a major debt that will be and must be paid within 48 hours or she'll never be seen again. Now, this puts mom, dad, and son, and as well as the police, into a total panic. But the police tell her, hey, gotta calm down. Gotta calm down and keep them talking, And then even the abductor tells mom, if you do not calm down, I'm gonna hurt your daughter. And then he tells the police, I'm fully aware by now that you are listening in as well. I'm sure you've tapped the phones, but don't try to waste your time trying to trace the call or try to locate my position. I planned this out thoroughly, so you won't find me anywhere in the area that you're looking. In fact, you'll be surprised to find me anywhere close to the area that you're looking, because I've had her for several hours now, and I've waited until she got home because I know her plan. I know her routine, so I waited. Now, the police believe the caller obviously is someone that the daughter knows and possibly even a family member. They even think that mom, dad, and son knows who the abductor is. So now a negotiator's on the scene and he quickly tries to intervene, but he is absolutely shut down by the caller, who will only speak to mom. She doesn't want to talk, or the caller doesn't want to talk to anyone but mom. And he makes it clear any further interruptions by anyone other than mom will result in physical bodily harm to the daughter. Now, the story unfolds. We've reached 12:06 a.m. The caller tells mom he's going to hang up and will call her back in exactly 2 hours to give her the demands. The police work on keeping the family calm, especially mom, and they provide her with instructions on how to communicate with the caller in the best way possible without getting too overwhelmed. Now, everyone's holding the pattern and waiting for the call. The family goes into prayer. The police ask some of them join in as well. The church pastor and the first lady, they've arrived on the scene, so the family does allow them to come in and join in prayer as well. So they sit intensely, waiting on that call. And believe it or not, the caller does exactly what is stated. I will call you in exactly 2 hours. It is now 2:06 a.m. And the phone rings, just as the caller said it would. Exactly 2 hours to the second. Now he tells mom, I'm going to give you 15 seconds, proof of life, so your daughter will be able to talk to you. So he allows the daughter to say something. And of course, she says something frantically. And then exactly 15 seconds, he cuts her off. Then the caller tells mom, I've known your daughter for many years, her and her friends, but especially her, the leader, the bully, treated me like crap. All the way from elementary school into high school until my family moved away. We moved at the end of my freshman year. The caller told her as well. She led the group that mocked him almost daily by telling other students, poor, smelly, four-eyed gay person, and that they caught me kissing another student of the same sex multiple times. The caller went on to specify that they passed nasty phone messages and fake artificial intelligence pictures of me around the other students as well. The caller even says it got so bad that other students refused to be anywhere near me during lunch or any recess, gym, anything. Didn't even want to work with him or her on school projects, and they only did so because the teacher made them do it. And the worst thing that the daughter ever did, apparently, was to have her and her friends hold the caller down while she cut off a few inches of his hair and then smeared lipstick all over the caller's face and made it clear, if you ever tell anyone, any teacher, the principal, anybody, that we did this to you, I will have you abducted by my uncle who just got out of prison after serving the last 30 years for murder. And he will do anything I ask of him because I'm his favorite niece, and he always makes sure he protects me. Even in prison, he's taking care of people, and they'll never be heard from again. The caller was absolutely terrified and made it clear that, your daughter had plans for me, and now I'm going to get the last laugh. The caller goes on to tell Mom, you know what, I'm getting a little frantic and crazy here just talking about what your daughter did to me. So I need to hang up, and I will call you back in exactly 1 hour. I just need some time to calm myself down before I do something irrational to your daughter. So the caller hangs up, just as he told Mom he would do, and the family sits tight along with the police, waiting for that call. Now, more than an hour has passed and no call. So now we're in a panic. The officer in charge keeps the family calm, so the caller will call. In the meantime, police continue to question Mom and Dad and son to see if they can figure out what was going on with the caller's accusations. The family denies ever hearing about any such behavior from the daughter, and were never alerted by the schools or anybody from faculty about her behavior. Ever. Her daughter was a model student. They asked about the uncle being released from prison after 30 years on a murder sentence. They looked it up. They didn't find anything. So Dad tells them he nor Mom has any siblings that's ever gone to jail or prison. So they didn't know what the caller was talking about. Dad and Mom always just assumed the daughter was a good person just because of her reputation at school. That's what they assumed. They never got any negative feedback from anyone on the school level, from the board, or the faculty, or teachers. At this point, 2 hours passed, and finally a call to Mom's phone at 4:32 a.m. The caller stated that he just needed some time to gather, get the mind right, because the rage was over the top. Telling about the bad things that the daughter was responsible for. Now Mom asks, what about your demands? The caller tells Mom, once I reveal myself to her and she remembers exactly who I am, all he wanted was a sincere apology. That's it. Just wanted a sincere apology for everything she's done to him. Then he tells Mom, I'm at a completely unknown location. Your daughter's blindfolded and drugged and has no idea of the location. So if she sincerely apologizes to me, I will call you around the same time, 4:40 a.m. in exactly 48 hours, and I will release her to a location that you can pick her up from. So at this point, the caller hangs up, and now the family and police, only thing they can do is wait. They have no way of finding her, locating her, although they're out there doing the best they can to try to find her. Police are just unable to pinpoint any location. The caller, using a burner phone or whatever he's using, he's been able to keep himself on the low. Now, to end this, the caller does contact Mom. Exactly 48 hours later, it is 4:40 a.m. as promised. The caller tells her, upon seeing my face, along with the nasty messages and photos I kept handy, your daughter immediately recognized who I was. I told her my demands, and she repeatedly and intensely apologized with the greatest sincerity I've ever experienced, especially with all the bullying that I've gone through since childhood. So the caller also tells Mom that she was playing around about the uncle matter and says she would never have had him killed. Caller accepts her apology and told Mom that It's the sincerest apology I ever had. It's all I've ever wanted and ever cared about. And he then tells mom that, oh, just so you know, I already released your daughter a couple of hours ago at a gas station approximately 2 miles from your home. So he gave her a specific location. He just stated that she was locked in the lady's bathroom, but he left her drugged and blindfolded with her hands and feet tied up and her mouth duct tape. So police and the family immediately get out there and make their way to the gas station. First, the police, they couldn't get inside of the lady's bathroom. For some reason, it was blocked. They repeatedly banged against the door but couldn't open it. Finally, they used the winch from a police vehicle and pulled the door open. And inside, to their amazement, was a coffin. And once the police opened the coffin, they found the remains of the daughter's body wrapped from head to toe in only a sheet and wearing just underclothing underneath the sheet. The family was shaken, distraught, same as the police. The autopsy revealed that she was repeatedly tortured, beaten, strangled, and received numerous razor blade cuts to her body during that 3 days of abduction. A few days later, mom is just sitting in the living room sofa alone, and she receives a message from the caller, and it states, I apologize for what I've done, but because of the years of my severe pain and suffering at the hands of your daughter and her friends, and especially her, I never had any intention of letting her live. I never planned to give her back to the family without doing what I felt was most appropriate punishment for her wrongdoing. So I took her life. She took my life, so I physically took her life. And then the message went on to say, take care, you're safe, you and your family, and I promise you'll never hear from me again. So in the end, although the police tried to track the final message, as well as talk to the daughter's closest friends during the elementary through high school years, a male suspect was finally named, but never found. So the case remains cold. The abductor was never caught. So what the abductor had simply that police, mom, dad, son didn't have. He had an adequate plan for exactly what he was going to do. And in the end, a life was lost. So listen to me, America. You need to think long and hard and carefully about your families and how easy it is to go from a life filled with joy to a life with a loved one lost forever, especially a child. Parents, if you have a child that comes home from work, school, or events after dark, husbands, wives, communicate with each other so that you know that they're on the way home. And I always do this for me. My wife, a family that comes over, if they're coming in at night, I'm up. Even if it's late hours, I'm up. I make sure lights are on in the home, my lights are outside, cameras, whatever, to make sure. I will even go out and make sure I greet them just to make sure they get in safe. So you may want to do the same thing, because the daughter, she parked on the side. Everybody just assumed what we normally do. We just assume. And then it ended in a nightmare. She was lost forever. And with that said, I truly hope you enjoyed this episode and what it speaks to. Thanks to all my listeners for tuning in. Thank you for your support as always. Please keep listening. Please subscribe and join me, because I got a lot more storytelling. Again, the stories are fiction, but they're based on real life experiences. So tune in next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to get all your listeners involved as we prepare for severe inclement weather, which can save lives. That's all, good people. Thanks for listening. God bless. Have a good evening. And always remember, a plan that succeeds is a plan that fulfills one's needs. Thank you and good night.